This episode of the Sara podcast is sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. During this 20th anniversary year of 9/11, help America to never forget. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org. T2t.org.
Boy, 9/11 changed, I think, all of our lives. Some of our lives more than others. Going back, 20 years, some people don't remember. Of course, they're young. And were born at a time or either after or during a time where they were too young to remember how 9/11, how Al-Qaeda affected our nation. And I want you to understand, as you're watching Afghanistan implode, Afghanistan burn, I want you to understand, as you are watching that, Al-Qaeda sleeper cells have already moved their way in. They've been there for over a year. I've been talking to intelligence sources about this. They are in Afghanistan as the Taliban regained control of that city and is threatening the lives of so many, and especially some friends of mine who are there, who are desperate and desperately waiting to get out of that country. I am doing everything I can and everything in my power. I am my husband. Even to the point where I'm begging, I will sponsor the family. I don't know what that entails. I'm filling out paperwork. I'm talking to people, but just getting them out is the tough part. That's what I'm going to be talking about to you today. I'm going to be talking to you about what happens when you're staring at death with your children, young children around your ankles in a home huddled as Taliban fighters, terrorists are walking up and down the streets with weapons in their hand, ready to take you and your entire family out because you believed in fighting for freedom in your country. You worked with U.S. forces and foreign forces and intelligence apparatus in the region, and now you have become effectively an enemy of the Taliban state in their mind. And this administration, the Biden administration, just completely fucked up and left you sitting there holding your empty bags and your family in your hands as President Ghani boarded a plane with all of the other thieves that stole money from the Afghan people, with all the millions of dollars that they could round up and put in banks. And they are, whoosh, they're gone. They've just left you behind. As you look at your children's eyes and wonder, how long do we have to live? Will anybody come and save us? There is always a price. There is sometimes a way out if you have enough money. And there are people out there right now that are trying to get Afghan families that are under threat and under duress out. And that's part of what I'm talking about today, because this is a world that many of you are unfamiliar with. And unfortunately, in my long career and like other journalists who've covered war zones, we are very familiar with this. And, and it hits home for me. It hits home for me. And I'll talk about that later in the show. Because, as you all know, my husband lost his eyesight in Afghanistan, almost his life. We lost our best friend there, who died on the battlefield fighting terrorists, actually foreign fighters. We've lost a lot of people we loved, and I'm going to be attending a funeral on August 26th of another friend that lost his life in the battle in Afghanistan. So for us, it's very personal. And even though we have lost many dear friends, I want you to think about this. There are Afghan friends as well. It's kind of a love-hate relationship with Afghanistan. There are Afghan friends as well. People who I consider my family and I will fight for, even if it's thousands of miles away. I want you to all please follow and subscribe and get all the links to my show, the podcast, my website at saraacarter.com. That's saraacarter.com. And please, while you're there, please sign up for our email list. We have been saying this over and over again, right? It's like warning signs, warning signs. The government and these social media giants are shadow banning us. They are taking away our ability to talk to one another and to tell the truth. How long have we been fighting for this? Fighting to tell the truth. Well, if you go to my website, you sign up for my email list, I can get information to you directly. You will not be shadow banned. I will not be shadow banned as best as I can when I'm able to send you those emails. And I will not bombard you with emails. I promise it's just to get the information to you so that you and your families can stay informed. Now is the critical time to be vigilant in the defense of freedom, right? Right now. We're seeing what's happening to our country right now. We're seeing what's happening all over the world. So there is no better way to do so than by joining the Association of Mature American Citizens. The reason why I am saying this is because they sponsor this show. I'm able to talk to you because of AMAC and organizations like AMAC, right? I'm able to communicate with you. We got to make money somehow. We got to pay the bills. We got to keep the lights on. But AMAC is an organization that I believe in, and it believes in fighting the good fight against reckless government spending and the ever-expanding scope of this crazy Biden administration federal government. It believes in helping small businesses. And guys, don't forget it. Just last week, I was at the border, right? And helping to secure our borders. By joining AMAC, you are taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other organization, I'm not even going to mention them, offers, but without the liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today. AMAC.us/Carter. That's AMAC.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at AMAC.us/Carter. Afghan falls to the Taliban. You know, they just walked in. Mullah Baradar, I was on the phone with a friend of mine in Pakistan as well, and he sent me a video. I can't speak Pashto, but Mullah Baradar, who has now posthumously made himself like the ruler of this new Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, said in a video, basically, hey, look, we just walked in. We didn't even know it would be this easy. That is exactly what he said. My source in Pakistan said that everyone's talking about it. Just how the US just caved in. Just here you go. Take it. Pakistan is reeling in this, the government of Pakistan, because they've always been playing these stupid games with us, stealing our money, hundreds of billions of dollars, lives wasted. I want you to think about this. Over 2,400 American servicemen and women, soldiers, troops killed in Afghanistan. Over 20,000, including my husband, wounded and injured. Some of them are living as vegetables. So I would say effectively, they are also not really alive. They're dead too. Some men and women lost their arms, their legs. Journalists have been killed over there. We have sacrificed everything to tell these stories. We had allies in Afghanistan. In 2001, when we entered Afghanistan, when a lot of people that I knew that went there, some of the first people that went in there, I mean, boy, the old mujahideen that fought the Soviets, those that fought alongside who they call the Great Panjshir Lion, Masood, I went to his grave. I was able to go there with my Afghan friends. The ones that I am trying to get out, the ones that I am thinking about every second of the day. When I went up to Panjshir and I went to the grave and I saw the respect that my friends had for this fighter, this man that took on with his tribe, the Russians. When the Russians were in Afghanistan, he died actually days before September 11th. Masood tried to warn and did warn the CIA that an imminent attack was going to happen in the United States. He was killed by people posing as journalists. They were pretending to be journalists. They were actually with Al-Qaeda. In fact, someone that I knew who was with a group of journalists that were following Masood, waiting for Masood to arrive. This is right before he died. They were actually working with British news agency at the time. They said they remembered these guys, this cameraman and this other guy just sitting there. And they were very quiet. They didn't talk a lot to them. And they just thought, these guys they don't really speak that much English and they don't want anything to do with us. They had no idea at the time. Nobody did, that they had explosives in their camera. And that what they were going to do is interview Masood, that they were going to effectively suicide themselves and kill Masood along with them. A lot of people don't remember that. Of course you don't. You're not Afghan. You don't live there. Many of you don't remember all these stories. Many of you are too young. But the reason that I bring that up is because I want to talk to you about the bravery of a people. The Panjshiris, there's the Tajiks, there's the Hazars. These are all different tribal groups. There's the Pashtun. There's different parts of the Pashtun, different tribes of the Pashtun. I was so blessed. And I'm saying I was blessed. I was blessed. One, that I made it all those times from 2007 all the way, oh my gosh, until 2013, 14. I'm 15. I went back, but I was in Iraq at that time. But I would travel all the time to Afghanistan. It was when I was working at the Washington Times, when I was working at the Washington Examiner. Sometimes I spent many, many weeks there. Sometimes I think my first trip was almost like 2 months. And then I would return and I would go back and I would go back and I would keep in contact with my same sources. I will not mention their names here for their security. A lot of people didn't even know I was even there. I would go out from Kabul. My husband always says, oh my gosh, she was crazy what she did. But I did it because I had the belief that it was our responsibility, my responsibility as a journalist and as a human being, to tell the truth, to get the truthful story, not to sit in Washington, D.C. and believe what the Department of Defense was feeding me, not to go to the Congress and listen to these hearings where, some of the people I love and respect were there. I'm not going to mention their names, but they would say consistently a big fat lie, even though I think that they were just hopeful, all these ISAF commanders, McKiernan and Petraeus, all of them, they were hopeful that we were winning. We're on the edge of winning. We're on the edge of victory. They didn't even know what they were doing. Every time I would come back with a story, I would be like, our soldiers' hands are tied behind their backs. I broke the story on the Karzai 12. That was, these 12 rules and regulations that President Karzai put on our troops, where they couldn't even do their job. They would have to wait for Afghan security forces to arrive before they could go into a village, before they could capture someone, which would never happen because they would be warned. Sometimes I remember being there. I remember being in Maiwan province, very dangerous area, Helmand province, in the Kandahar, like Helmand region, right on the border there. It was from what I remember, a small combat outpost. So dangerous, just overrun with Taliban. And I was out there with the soldiers as they, were going through the village and looking for weapons and, trying to tell this story. And I remember one morning we were waiting for the security forces. This is when I broke the big Karzai 12 story. And actually, believe it or not, I was on Sean Hannity's show when I got back from Afghanistan. Sean doesn't probably even remember this, but I was on his show on the Great American Panel talking about this story because he had read it and wanted me on. And wanted me on to talk about it. But when the security forces arrived and they were late, they were actually high. They were actually high on pot. They were smoking some weed, I guess, some wacky Afghan weed. And they showed up and they were like 16 years old. Like their uniforms were literally hanging past their arms. And like they had to roll them up and the pants were like all the way up to their chest. I swear to God. I was like, oh my gosh, we were waiting for this group. We are going to get slaughtered. This is going to be a bad day. It ended up actually being quite a good day, a very interesting day. And I remember the soldiers telling me at the base, if I would come on all the missions with them. I loved the Afghan children. I always tried to spend time talking to the women and children whenever I went to the villages. And I remember during that particular mission and operation, I was just surrounded by kids. They were so excited that my name was Sara. They said, that's an Afghan name. I must be Afghan. I had an interpreter. They were playing. We had pencils. I had pencils for them. The kids there loved pencils. They loved paper. That was for them more important than a toy. Although they did love soccer balls. Soccer balls were were prized possessions in Afghanistan. If you could get a soccer ball to them, they would be thrilled. And when there were a lot of kids around us, we knew we weren't going to get blown up. So last night, I was sitting there talking to my friends as they were surrounded by their children. And I was listening as the Taliban could hear some gunfire in the distance. And I was listening as to my friend whisper as the Taliban was coming down his street. And he was like, "Shh, Sara, they're coming down the street. They're coming. They're coming. I don't know if they're going to come in the house. Please stay with me." I stayed on the phone with him. I'm like, I can't do anything. I just said, please be very quiet. Don't let them hear you. He was waking up his brother, get up, get up, get up. The Taliban is here. You could hear the children. And I want you to think about this. My friend, his wife went into labor as the Taliban was entering Kabul. She was under so much stress. She went into labor. They tried to get to a hospital. They couldn't. The doctors wanted them to get back home. Water broke, ready to give birth. So last night, the baby had already been born. It's a small baby, can imagine newborn. They're trying to keep everybody quiet. Earlier in the day, his wife had delivered this beautiful baby, and then she had to be rushed back to a hospital room where possibly the Taliban had already been in the hospital, could have found some of the people that I know and just executed them, because that's what's actually going on right now. So now we're back in the room, right? Back in the room with my friends. They have lots of children there because there's a number of families. They're all connected, but they have their own wives and their own children. And some of those children are little girls, and they know what's going to happen to them under the Taliban. And they're terrified. And they don't know if they're going to live. And about an hour away from these friends of mine are some other friends that are also connected to these friends. And I hate talking to you like this because I have to be as vague as possible, because the Taliban, I'd worked on many stories in Pakistan, and many people follow my stuff. And I'm just worried that I could put their lives in danger. But I want you to understand what's going on there. I have another group. Some people even have American passports, people that I know. And they're going to have to go through multiple checkpoints, just to get, think about this, just to get to possible safety and possibly be taken out of the country. Now, how will people get out? The airport is in chaos. There have been planes that have taken off, cargo planes, where people have literally gotten into the wheel area of the plane and have fallen from the skies into homes down below in Kabul. People are literally hanging off the C-17s and the C-130s at the airport. Over 20,000 people rushed the airport. My friends did not. I told them, do not do that. Do not rush the airport unless we know. Because I'm afraid people are going to be slaughtered. I got pictures from another person in Afghanistan that basically said to me that the mass graves are now starting. And they are executing people not only in Kandahar, but in other parts of Afghanistan who assisted our U.S. soldiers and our intelligence agencies. They are walking them up. I've seen the pictures. I'm not going to show them to you. And they are taking young people. They are shooting them in the head, and they are throwing them into mass graves. They're just killing them. They are sending warnings to all the women, all of the women, all of the young girls, no more school, no more this, no more that. They are also promising, because when they went up north and took part of the northern provinces, and Mazar Sharif. The Taliban also promised a lot of those men up there that they could just pick whatever wife they want. That was part of the reward for fighting the people in the north and taking control of those provinces, is that they could just go and just take your daughter. They could just take her, marry her, rape her, whatever. Who cares? To the Taliban. And I want you to understand this. Women are nothing but objects, nothing but a possession. In fact, many times, and this is even coming from my Afghan friends, they, and from when I was there, they are worth less than their fighting dogs. I mean, you'll get a lot more money for a fighting dog than you will for your daughter. Sometimes, depending on how good your fighting dog is. I used to call myself third gender when I was there. Like, and a friend of mine, she was a photographer that used to go with me. She's amazing. Mary, we would say, you know, I think that was actually her coin. She coined the term, we were third gender. We were third gender. Neither were we respected by the Taliban, but we could sit with the men and eat with them. They didn't really care so much because we weren't Muslim women and we were women. So we were probably worth less. So that's pretty scary thought. I was disgusted. I was seeing a CNN reporter today in Kabul, female reporter. She was saying out, she was among all of the Taliban people that were dancing in the streets with all their weapons. And she basically said that, you know, it appeared that the Taliban was peacefully taking the city. I mean, what is CNN, like some kind of like propaganda machine for terrorists? I don't even know what is going on here. My husband, Marty, and I, as I was on the phone all weekend, poor guy, he barely even got a chance to talk to me. I've been on the phone trying to figure out how we will help these friends of ours. And there are people in the world, let's just put it that way, and foundations that can, and people who have money who can and sometimes do help with these extrications, getting people out. It's a very complicated process. It requires people that know what they're doing. It takes a lot of risk, a lot of know-how. And, you know, the odds, I don't know, 50-50 right now. I have no idea of getting them out safely. But I know our job in the United States was to leave no man and woman or child behind. We should not be doing that. There were better ways of handling this. There were better ways of dealing with this. And last night, as my husband and I watched our daughter sleeping peacefully in her bed and us in our home, I thought to myself, my gosh, what would it happen to me if I was in the same position as my friends? If I was watching my newborn baby or my daughters sleeping, my young daughters, wondering what the future held, wondering if there was even a future at all, and just hoping that someone, I'm no one. I'm doing everything that I can, but I'm not, what can I do? Is just trying to get them out, just trying to save them, right? Just trying to do something. That's all they wanted from the US government. All these people wanted was for us to keep our word, And I watched as so many lieutenant colonels and generals and people over there in the intel community would promise, oh, if you work for us, you're going to have a great chance of getting to the US. You'll get a visa. You'll get this. You'll get that. And now they're just being abandoned. Well, I'm going to do everything I can on my part. And I know there are people out there, and thank you for everything you've done and everything you're going to do to help get these innocent people out of Afghanistan. And for all of you listening, really take this seriously. This could be any one of us. We think we're going to live like this forever. We think our nation will always be safe, and hopefully it will. And hopefully we'll never have to go through anything like they have to go through or other people in the world have to go through. And thank God every time you see your children laying in their beds and that they're safe and that they're warm and that they have food on the table and that no one's going to kidnap them, no one's going to rape them, no one's going to harm them. Thank God that we live in the greatest nation on earth. But also think about what's happening to others. And just realize how we treat other people is how we are going to be treated in the future. That's a fact. That's a fact. We should always keep our word. We should live on principle. And that's not easy. But that's what this nation is all about. If we let that go, folks, we won't have anyone to turn to in the future. Look, nothing beats the feel of a luxurious towel when you step out of the shower. Wrap yourself in nothing but the best. I got to tell you, I love Mike Lindell. I know. A lot of you are out there. He's a fighter among fighters. And My Pillow is an amazing company, an amazing American company. And he believes in this country. So every My Pillow towel set, I want you guys to know, is highly absorbent. I have it. It's soft to the touch without any of that weird lotiony feel. It comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. He is a great sponsor of the show. Please buy, if you're going to buy towels, if you're going to buy sheets, if you're going to buy dog beds, whatever you need to buy it from Mike Lindell and My Pillow. Do it, please, because not only will it help us, it'll help him, it'll help America. It'll help his company, and his company is growing. For a limited time, get the My Pillow 6-piece towel set, regularly $109.99, now for only $39.99. And you can do that with the promo code Carter, okay? So go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square, enter promo code Carter, or call 1-800-685-7221. While you're there, take advantage of the deep discounts on all My Pillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets and My Pillow premium pillows. Get your My Pillow 6-piece towel set for only $39.99. Okay, $39.99. I can keep the podcast going. We can keep Mike Lindell and My Pillow going. Only with the promo code Carter, though. You're not going to get it unless you put the promo code Carter in. Call 1-800-685-7221 or visit mypillow.com today. Okay, so what should we talk about? How Biden got this so wrong, right? How did he get this wrong? Wasn't there a plan? There should have been a plan. It's an evacuation operation plan. It exists. The Department of Defense has it. It's all wrapped up in a nice bundle. We have these plans. They call them NEOs. I wish I could remember the full acronym for this, what the acronym stands for, but it's evacuation operations. And it's conducted by the Marine Corps as well. I mean, this is a big deal. Why? Because the Department of Defense and this administration failed. First, they advertised that we were going to pull out. Why would you do that with an enemy? They didn't lay down any ground rules. They didn't say, okay, look, this is the deal, Mullah Baradar. We're going to pull out. We can't be here forever. But we're not going to tell you when. And we're not going to tell you how. And if you touch one hair on the head of any of our U.S. American civilians or troops or anyone who worked with us or is connected to our embassy or any Afghans in the city of Kabul that we are going to be moving out, if you just touch one hair on their head on the day that we're moving out, we are going to send a drone right where it'll find you. Let's just put it that way. We are going to drone your asses. Period. End of discussion. They get that. Believe me, the Taliban understands that. They understand that loud and clear. What they never understood was why we were so weak with Afghanistan. Believe me, I know. I told you in the beginning of this podcast, I talked a little bit about Masood. I had an opportunity to meet with a lot of the commanders that worked with Masood. This was way long ago. And I would meet them. I would meet them at the Gandamak Lounge. I'll talk to you about that one day. It was a restaurant and a bar actually in Kabul where We would meet people. I met them in Panjshir. I met them on the road when I was sitting along the river with one of my good friends, who is an amazing, amazing hero in my book, who has beautiful children and is now trying to get out. And we would talk about, I would meet the commanders, and they would tell me, how the United States was failing in its mission. And I would report on that. They would say, hey, why are you guys building a house for somebody who worked with the Taliban, and blew up some of your soldiers? Why are you always apologizing? Why do you change your strategy every 6 months? Why don't you just kill the Taliban? Why don't you just kill the enemy? Why don't you let us kill the enemy? I remember General Abdul Rashid Dostum talked to me about that. And I think you all remember, for those of you who pay attention to Afghanistan, he rode on horseback with his men and our CIA in 2001. And Michael Spann was the first CIA agent to be killed in Afghanistan at the Pink Fortress. God rest his soul. And there was a whole movie made about it. But I remember Dostum. I sat with him. I've talked with him. And he would say, this is crazy. This is crazy. The strategy will never work. And believe me, Dostum's not like he's a pretty bad dude. He can be a pretty bad dude. But people got to be bad to survive in Afghanistan. Afghans understand that. Afghanistan, the place where empires die, right? I mean, the British Empire, the Russians, now we're leaving. I'm sure there's Genghis Khan. I'm sure you can go back to Alexander the Great. It's a tough, tough place. I used to think when I flew into Afghanistan, when I'd come, I remember my very, very first trip. And I think I've talked about with you this before, but I'll just say it again. I believe I was on a C-130. It might have been a C-17, but I was up where the pilot was. I was in the front of the plane looking out over the mountains as we were flying into Afghanistan. And I believe it was sunrise. And I remember seeing the snow on the mountains and the jagged edges of the mountains and the vastness of this region, with little pockets of villages here and there. Some of these villages, I mean, it's like you go back in time, 2,000 years, might as well have gone back to the time of Christ, right? But I was looking at it and how extraordinarily beautiful and how extraordinarily dangerous and haunting it was. And then when I was on the ground and I would travel with my friends and we were in a SUV traveling to Mazar Sharif. I can't even believe it now. Traveling to Panjshir, traveling here, traveling there, and I went without, they were my bodyguards. I had to trust them, and I did. That's why they're like my family, because they always took care of me. In sometimes very dangerous and precarious situations that we were in. But I remember looking at the faces of some of the old men I would meet that would sit along the river, and they were so leathery, right? Big, bright blue eyes, this dark, leathery skin from the sun, these jagged edges along their faces, their hands, old and tired, and their feet with they didn't even need to wear shoes. It was like calloused so thick on their feet, they could literally walk across coals of fire and heat. And I would believe they would make it, because it was just such a tough environment. That environment changed the people. They became a part of that environment. It's a brutal environment, and people have to survive. And surviving is very different for an Afghan person, someone from Afghanistan, than especially someone from a village, somebody who's not from Kabul, somebody who isn't highly educated. And believe me, there are a lot of Afghan people that are incredibly educated, incredibly reliable. I mean, these are my friends. These are people that I would trust with my life. But I got to tell you, in some parts of Afghanistan, it's like going back in time. And they're brilliant. They're brilliant survivalists. And they're warriors. And they would say to me, some of these commanders, what is the US doing? And I would think, being a young journalist or covering the war, I would think to myself, well, they've got to know what they're talking about. We can't be spending hundreds of billions of American taxpayer dollars and just aimlessly throwing it in the wind and hoping that something sticks and trying to change a country and trying to make them us. Well, they got to know that they got to know this has got to work. Something has to work. But I keep reporting the truth. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what they're doing. Are we building a school or are we fighting an enemy? Our soldiers, their morale was just ripped to shreds. They didn't even know what to do. I don't know if some of you remember, but some of them, the stopgap, where soldiers were going back and back and back and back. They ended up with PTSD. It's a very real thing. They lost people they loved. They lost their friends. Some of them lost their legs. Some of them lost their minds. Some of them literally lost everything. Families, both in Afghanistan and here in the United States, watched as their loved ones died. I said, I have to believe that this means something. That there are people in Washington, D.C. actually doing their job. That they actually care about what's going on here. And then, similarly to, sorry to say this, to what I'm reporting from the border, I would realize that a lot of these people just don't give a shit about you or I or the Afghans or the soldiers or the troops. I like to say troops. Soldiers are just army, but troops, all of our branches that were out there, they don't. They were just making money off of it. And people were lining their pockets. The contractors, some of them, some of the military industrial complex, whatever. We've heard about that before, right? And people in the Afghan government that were like, screw this. If I'm going to come here and spend, 5 years of my life just trying to, run a nation that I know is never going to be capable of running itself in a democracy the way the United States wants it, I'm just going to line my pockets with your U.S. tax dollars and your family members. But what Biden did, his incompetence, President Biden's absolute and utter incompetence has led to a catastrophe for us. A catastrophe. Afghanistan will be a training camp again for Al-Qaeda and others. It already is. Hopefully we won't have to send our young men and women back into harm's way to do that. But I'm going to tell you this. We have to hold these lawmakers accountable. We have to vote some of them out of office. We have to hold the Biden administration accountable. They are the most incompetent. And I've been looking on Twitter. Everybody keeps saying they're going to make Jimmy Carter look good. And guess what? The Biden administration already makes the Jimmy Carter administration look like they were brilliant. How sad is that? Look, a lot of things are going to be changing financially for us as well in our country. We have an incompetent president, but the Federal Reserve admits inflation is increasing. So how do you protect your investments? With gold, people, with gold. So many gold companies. How do you know who to trust or that they're getting you authentic, rare coins and precious metals? Well, that's easy because the one company that you need to trust is the one company that sponsors this show right now, and it's Universal Coin and Bullion. Universal Coin and Bullion is dedicated to providing clients with outstanding collecting and investment strategies for the rare coin market. They are specializing in U.S. rare coins, gold, silver, and platinum, American Eagles, and so much more. Visit universalcoin.com/Sara, that's /Sara, or call 1-800-UCB-GOLD. That's 1-800-UCB-GOLD to get at no cost, no obligation gold information kit. to easily protect and enjoy your rare coins and precious metals. Tell them Sara sent you. That's universalcoin.com/Sara or call 1-800-UCB-GOLD. I talked a little bit about Biden being completely responsible for this. I talked to you about what is happening right now on the ground in Afghanistan and in Kabul. And I know a lot of you are out there thinking, like, maybe some of you don't have members of your family in the military. Very few do. There's a very small percentage of people that volunteer to serve their country. And maybe some of you do have members of the military in your family, but you're even thinking like, well, how does this affect me? We just want out of Afghanistan. We're tired of it. Oh, first of all, the tired of it part. I get it. You don't want to hear the news over and over again. But guess what? I'm not tired of fighting for freedom. And I live with the cost of that fight every single day because my husband can't see at all. Anything. Can't drive anymore. He can't get on a motorcycle. You want to talk about being tired? I want you to think about that when you tell someone, well, I'm tired of the war. If you don't have anybody in that war right now, or anybody that's out there fighting Al Qaeda, or anybody that's out there on the front lines in Africa right now battling these terrorist organizations, you're a lot less tired than the families who do. That's just the facts. I'm not putting you down. I'm not saying you don't have a right to feel exhausted of all of this, because guess what? I know we all do. But we cannot let down our guard. And we don't just walk away. Without doing the right thing. We can't do that. That makes us bad people. We are not bad people. We're the greatest nation on earth. We should hold ourselves accountable for what we say to other people, for what we do. That's all we need to do. We don't need to be perfect. We will sometimes disappoint, just like we disappoint people in our own lives. When we can't do it, when we want to do it, but we just can't. But we should do everything in our power to do the right thing, to protect people, to be there for them, to be with our friends. And I know, my friends, you're listening to this. And I know you're there. And I want you to know that I'm doing everything I can to get you out. And I will always be there for you because you're my family. And for all of you out there who are listening to this, we are the American people. We are the united, think of the word. It's not just a word, United States of America. That's what we need to be again. We need to be united. We need to hold our government officials accountable. We need to let them know that we are in charge, not them. And that those hundreds of billions of dollars that they wasted and all those lives lost and all those people that have been wounded, we need to let them know that that was not in vain and it's unacceptable and we will not take it. We need to let them know that, because if we don't, if we get lazy, if we walk away, if we put this all in the hands of incompetent government run by President incompetent Biden, then we will only have ourselves to blame. Because believe me, our enemies are still out there. They are watching and they are waiting. And they see us falling apart right now. And we cannot allow that. I was so grateful to be with you today. God bless you. God bless this beautiful nation. God bless all the people that are trying to get out of Afghanistan, all of our American servicemen and women who are still there, all of the people that worked for our State Department, as well as our other agencies that are still trapped inside Kabul, inside Afghanistan. May God get them out, get them help. May we get them out, get them help. I beg you, President Biden, which I doubt you're even listening to this, but if you do hear this, I beg you and your administration to do the right thing and get them out. You know you can still do it. And to all of our Afghan allies and all of our Afghan family that is over there that stood by our side, some who lost their lives, many who lost their lives fighting alongside us, thank you so much for everything you did. Thank you so much for being there and for protecting us and for being a part of our family. And you will never be forgotten. And some of us will do everything we can to get you out.